Before this story begins, listen carefully, because this is not a ghost story. This is not a fantasy. This is the story of a child who lived but was never allowed to exist. If you believe some truths are buried on purpose and some children are forgotten by design, then subscribe to this channel now, because stories like this are never told twice. Now listen. Chapter 1. The Call That Should Not Have Been Made. The 911 call came at 2:41 a.m. from a landline that was not supposed to work. The house had been abandoned for 36 years. No electricity, no water, no registered owner. And yet, the dispatcher heard a voice. Not crying, not screaming, just breathing. Slow, uneven, childlike. Then a whisper. "I'm still here." The line went dead. The house everyone avoided. The house stood at the edge of a forgotten town in rural Ohio, hidden behind dead trees and rusted fencing. Locals called it the Quiet House, not because it was peaceful, but because no one ever heard anything from inside. No animals, no wind through open windows, no footsteps. Children crossed the street to avoid it. Adults pretended it wasn't there. Police had checked it once in the 1990s. Empty, locked, nothing inside but dust. Or so they thought. Entry. Deputy Mark Ellison arrived first. He didn't expect much. Another prank call, probably. But when he stepped onto the porch, his radio crackled with static. The air felt wrong. Cold, but not the normal kind. He pushed the door open. It creaked once, then stopped. Inside, the house was clean. Too clean. No furniture, no trash, no footprints. Just one thing. A small pair of shoes placed neatly in the middle of the living room floor. Child size. The sound from the wall. Ellison walked deeper into the house. Every step echoed. Then he heard it. A sound that didn't belong in an empty home. Scratching. Soft. Slow. Coming from behind the wall. He pressed his ear against it and froze. A child's voice whispered, "Please don't be loud." The hidden space. They broke the wall open. Behind it was a narrow passage, barely wide enough for a child to crawl. At the end, a small room. No windows. Concrete floor. Single dim bulb hanging from the ceiling. And in the corner, sitting with knees pulled to chest, a boy. Maybe 8 years old, thin, pale, eyes too calm for a child. He didn't cry, he didn't run. He just looked up and asked, "Am I allowed to stand now?" The first question. They wrapped him in a blanket. Paramedics tried to speak to him. "What's your name, buddy?" The boy shook his head slowly. "I don't have one." Another paramedic tried gently. "Do you know how old you are?" The boy paused, then said something that made the room silent. "I'm not supposed to know time." Hospital records. At the hospital, doctors ran every test. No missing child matched him. No fingerprints in the system. No dental records. No birthmarks logged anywhere. It was like the boy had appeared from nowhere. A nurse tried again. "Sweetheart, what do people call you?" The boy whispered. "They just say, 'Hey.'" The drawing. A child psychologist gave him crayons. She said, "Draw your house." The boy nodded. He drew a square. Inside it, nothing. Then outside the square, he drew people, walking away. He pointed to the drawing and said, "That's where everyone else lives." The last rule. Later that night, the boy spoke again. Only once. He said, "There were rules. The doctor leaned closer. "What rules?" The boy listed them slowly. "Don't talk. Don't ask. Don't look outside. Don't use your name. Don't exist unless told." The name he chose. Before falling asleep, the boy whispered something unexpected. "If I'm allowed now, can I choose a name?" The nurse smiled softly. "Of course." The boy thought for a long time, then said, "Evan, because it sounds like even, like normal." Evan woke up in a room with windows for the first time in his life. He didn't understand what he was seeing at first. Light. Real light. It hurt his eyes. He raised his hands slowly, shielding his face, unsure if he was allowed to do that. No one shouted. No one hissed. No rule was broken. The ceiling was white. The walls were clean. The air smelled like soap and plastic instead of damp concrete. Evan whispered to himself, "So this is where people wake up." Learning to sit without permission. A nurse entered quietly. She smiled, but Evan flinched. He instinctively pulled his knees to his chest. The nurse noticed. She sat on the floor instead of the chair. "I won't stand over you," she said softly. That confused him. No one had ever changed their position for him before. She placed a cup of water beside the bed. "You can drink whenever you want." Evan stared at the cup. "Even if I'm not told?" "Yes." He waited. 30 seconds. A full minute. Then he touched the cup with one finger. Nothing happened. No punishment. No voice from the wall. He drank, and for the first time, Evan cried. Not loudly, silently, like he was afraid even crying might be against a rule he didn't remember anymore. The file with no beginning. Detective Laura Finch opened the case file, or what should have been a case file. There was nothing inside. No birth certificate, no hospital record, no adoption history, no missing persons report. The system didn't show Evan as missing. It showed him as never entered. Laura leaned back in her chair. In 20 years of work, she had never seen this. A child with no starting point. She muttered to herself, "You don't erase someone by accident." Evan's first question. That evening, Evan asked his first real question. He was sitting on the hospital bed, feet not touching the floor. "Why is everyone looking at me like a problem?" The social worker froze. She chose her words carefully. "They're trying to help you." Evan nodded slowly. "That's not how it feels." She asked gently, "What does it feel like?" Evan thought, then answered, "Like I broke something by being seen." The memory gap. A child therapist named Dr. Raymond tried something different. He didn't ask Evan to remember. He asked Evan what he didn't remember. "Is there a time before the room?" Evan shook his head. "Only rules." "Do you remember voices?" "Yes." "How many?" Evan paused. "Enough to know when one was missing." That answer made Dr. Raymond uncomfortable. Children weren't supposed to talk like that. The man without a face. On the third night, Evan screamed. Security rushed in. He was shaking, pointing at the corner of the room. "There was a man," he said. "What man?" He swallowed. "I don't know his face. I was never allowed to look up." "What did he do?" "He checked if I was still quiet." Ohio doesn't match. Detective Finch dug into property records. The house where Evan was found had no recent owner, but 38 years ago, it belonged to a shell company, a company that didn't exist anymore. But its name appeared once before in an old federal housing initiative, one that was never completed or officially canceled, just stopped being discussed. The other drawing. Evan drew again. This time, no one told him to. He drew multiple small rooms, all identical.
each one with a child inside. None of them had faces. When asked how many rooms there were, Evan said, "I didn't count. Counting wasn't allowed." Learning his age. Doctors estimated Evan's age at around 9. When told, Evan looked confused. "That's too many," he said. "What's too many?" "Years." They asked why. "Because I only remember being small." The first outside step. They took Evan outside, just to the hospital courtyard. Grass, wind, birds. Evan stood completely still. Then he asked, "Where are the walls?" The nurse smiled. "There aren't any." Evan looked around, then whispered, "So what keeps people in?" No one answered. A system that didn't fail. The state got involved, quietly, too quickly. Men in suits, no badges, no names. They asked to see Evan. Laura blocked them. "Who are you?" One man replied, "People cleaning up an old mistake." Laura replied coldly, "Children aren't mistakes." The man didn't smile. Evan learns the word choice. They explained choice to Evan, that he could say no, that he could decide. He didn't believe them. "You're lying," he said calmly. "People don't get that." They asked who told him that. He said, "Experience." The locked cabinet. Laura broke protocol. She accessed sealed archives, deep ones, cold storage, files marked with numbers, not names. She found references, facilities, behavioral silence conditioning, juvenile. One note stood out. Subjects respond best when identity is removed early. Laura felt sick. Evan hears his name. A nurse called him Evan from the hallway. He froze. She repeated it. He walked towards her slowly. "That sound, that's mine?" "Yes." He smiled. A small one, unpracticed. The question that ended the room.
The file that was not
Evan
meant to
asked
be opened.
something no one expected.
Detective Laura Finch didn't
what
sleep
happens
that
to
night.
the rules?
The archive
No
file
one had
sat
an
on
answer.
her desk like something alive. It wasn't thick. It wasn't detailed. That was what made it terrifying. Most government programs leave trails, budgets, memos, signatures. This one had only fragments. Typed pages, no letterhead, no author, just clinical language. One line kept repeating, "Silence preserves stability." Laura whispered it out loud. The words felt wrong in the air. Evan learns hunger is not punishment. At the hospital cafeteria, Evan stared at the food tray like it was a test. Mashed potatoes, chicken, bread, milk. He asked quietly, "Do I have to finish it to be allowed to sleep?" The nurse swallowed hard. "No, Evan. You eat if you want." He nodded, then ate everything anyway. Not fast, not desperate, just careful, like he was following rules no one else could see. The man who visited at night. On the 5th night, security cameras glitched for exactly 6 minutes. When they came back online, Evan was sitting upright in bed, awake, eyes open, not scared, just alert. When asked why he wasn't sleeping, he said, "He came back." Who? The checking man. The drawing with doors. Evan drew again. This time he drew doors, many doors, each with numbers, but the numbers weren't normal. They skipped, like 1, 3, 7, 12, 19. When asked why, Evan said, "Some rooms stopped." Ohio was only one location. Laura found matching utility patterns, empty houses, same electrical ghost usage, same property shell ownership, different states, Indiana, West Virginia, rural Pennsylvania, always small towns, always forgotten places, always houses no one checked twice.
Evan hears music. In physical therapy, someone played radio music. Evan froze, then started shaking, not from fear, from confusion. "It's too many sounds," he whispered. They turned it off. He sat quietly, then said, "I like it." The word friend. A young orderly waved at Evan every morning. Day 6, Evan asked, "What is a friend?" The orderly smiled. "Someone who stays even when they don't have to." Evan thought about that for a long time. The first laugh. It happened accidentally. Someone dropped a clipboard. The loud noise surprised him. Then he laughed. Short, sharp, like a sound he didn't know he could make. The entire nurse station went silent. Then one nurse cried quietly. The hidden budget. Laura found financial routing, funds hidden inside infrastructure repair grants, tiny amounts spread across decades, enough to maintain properties, enough to maintain something inside them. Evan dreams in concrete. When asked about dreams, he said, "I dream in the room. Do you ever dream outside?" "No." "Why?" "Because I don't know what outside feels like when I sleep." The phrase that was training. In physical therapy, Evan repeated a phrase automatically: "Stillness equals safety." No one had taught him that, at least no one present. Laura gets warned. Her supervisor called. "Drop it." Why? "Because some systems were built for reasons we don't talk about anymore." She replied, "A child is not a system." The line went quiet. Evan watches the sky. They took him outside at night. Stars. He stared for 10 minutes, then whispered, "They didn't tell me about this." The list of missing years. Laura cross-referenced missing child reports from 40 years. Small inconsistencies appeared. Reports filed, then withdrawn. Families relocating suddenly. Records sealed unusually fast. Evan asks the biggest question. That night he asked, "Was I the only one who followed the rules?" No one answered, because they didn't know.
The tape that knew his breathing. Laura Finch sat alone in the evidence room with a small gray cassette tape. No label, no date, no initials. Just a number written by hand, E07. She pressed play. At first, there was nothing. Then, breathing. Slow, controlled, child small. Laura felt her stomach tighten. The breathing pattern matched Evan's medical chart. The tape that knew his breathing. Laura Finch sat alone in the evidence room. The cassette player looked ancient. Dust clung to its edges like it hadn't been touched in decades. She pressed play. At first, nothing. Then, a sound. Breathing. Not adult breathing. Not panicked. Measured. Controlled. Like a child trained to breathe quietly. Laura checked Evan's medical file again. The rhythm matched. Perfectly. Training, not parenting. The tape continued. A calm male voice spoke slowly. Subject will remain still. Subject will respond only when prompted. Identity introduces instability. Laura stopped the tape. Her hands were shaking. This wasn't abuse, this was training. Evan remembers a number. That afternoon, Evan asked a strange question. Do numbers get lonely? The therapist paused. What do you mean? Evan looked down. I was a number before I was Evan. The other boy. That night, Evan spoke without being asked. There was another one. Laura leaned forward slowly. Another child? Evan nodded. He cried too much. What happened to him? What happened to the other child? Evan asked carefully. Evan swallowed. They moved him. Where? Evan shook his head. They said he wasn't quiet enough to keep. No one in the room breathed. Silence was the goal. Laura played more tapes. Each one repeated the same idea. Silence equals stability. Identity equals risk. Attachment equals failure. Children were not being raised. They were being contained. Evan learns anger exists. During a session, Evan suddenly pushed a chair. It fell loudly. He froze, hands shaking, waiting. No punishment came. He looked confused. I thought anger breaks things, he whispered. It can, the therapist said, but it also tells you something matters. Evan processed that slowly. The file marked successful subject. Laura found a document, 1 page, stamped, subject E07, successful compliance. Her blood ran cold. Evan wasn't a failure, he was a success. Why he was kept. Another line appeared beneath the stamp. Subject demonstrates long-term silence retention. This wasn't accidental survival. He was kept because he worked. Evan hears a baby cry. A newborn cried in the hospital hallway. Evan covered his ears, not from pain, from recognition. That sound gets people taken away, he said. Laura breaks the rules. Laura copied files, all of them. She knew she'd lose her job. She didn't care. Children weren't experiments. Evan touches a mirror. He stood in front of a mirror for the first time, touched his face. This is the one they didn't see, he said. The question that changed everything. Evan asked Laura, if I was so good at being quiet, why did they leave me? Laura had no answer, because that was the most terrifying part. The system didn't end. Laura discovered something worse. The program didn't stop. It evolved. Different names, different budgets, same logic. Evan chooses to speak. One night, Evan said, I think I want to be loud one day. Laura smiled sadly. You can be. Evan nodded, but not yet. The woman who recognized him. It happened in the hospital cafeteria. A woman in her late 60s froze when she saw Evan walking past with a nurse. Her tray slipped from her hands, plates shattered. Everyone looked at her. But she wasn't looking at the mess. She was staring at Evan. Her lips moved without sound. "No," she whispered, "not again." The name she never used. Laura Finch spoke to her privately. The woman's name was Margaret Hale, former federal contractor, retired quietly. Too quietly. Margaret's hands shook as she spoke. "They told us never to name them," she said. "Names made it harder to stop." "Stop what?" Laura asked. Margaret swallowed. "Attachment." Evan listens from the hallway. No one noticed him. He heard everything. "Some children adjusted," Margaret continued. "Some didn't. The ones who didn't were relocated." Evan pressed his palm against the wall. Relocated. That word again. What the program was for. Margaret explained slowly, like a confession. Cold War era. Fear of collapse. Fear of panic. They wanted to know, what kind of human survives silence? What kind of mind stays stable without identity? Children were chosen because they adapted faster. Children forgot themselves better. Evan wasn't random. Laura leaned forward. "Why Evan?" Margaret looked down. He didn't cry much. He learned quickly. He obeyed even when no one was watching. Evan whispered to himself, "I was good." Chapter 66. The first lie Evan was taught. That night, Evan asked Laura something quietly. "Did I save anyone by being quiet?" Laura paused too long. Evan understood the answer before she spoke. The children who vanished. Margaret gave Laura a list, not names, numbers. Most were crossed out. Besides some numbers was a single word: unstable. Evan recognized 2 of them. He remembered their breathing. Evan feels guilt. Evan stopped drawing. He sat still for hours, not frozen, choosing stillness. When asked why, he said, "If I stay quiet, maybe they won't notice I'm still here." The question Laura couldn't ignore. Laura asked Margaret, "Did you ever regret it?" Margaret laughed bitterly. "Every birthday I never celebrated." The room comes back. Evan dreamed of the concrete room again, but this time the walls were made of people, adults standing close together, watching, saying nothing. Evan speaks in public. A social worker asked him his name in front of others. Evan hesitated, old instinct rising. Then he said clearly, "My name is Evan." The room felt different after that, like something cracked. Someone is watching again. Laura's apartment door was unlocked when she came home. Nothing stolen, just one thing placed on her table, a printed note. "Some systems are not meant to be remembered." Evan asked about the others. "Are there more like me?" Evan asked. Laura didn't lie. "Yes." "Are they still quiet?" "Some." Evan nodded. "Then they're still trapped." The choice Evan was never given. The state offered a solution. Close the case, seal records, private adoption, normal life. Silence again, just a nicer version. Evan listened, then said something simple. "I don't want to disappear nicely." The system's fear. Laura realized the truth. The system wasn't afraid of exposure. It was afraid of Evan speaking.
because a child raised without identity telling the truth could not be dismissed easily. Evan learns what courage is. Courage isn't being loud, Laura told him. It's being heard even when people want silence. Evan nodded. I think I can try that.
The day before the story broke,
The first
the
interview.
newsroom smelled
They
like
prepared
coffee
Evan
and printer
carefully.
ink.
No
Phones
pressure,
rang
no forcing,
constantly.
just
Producers
truth.
moved fast.
When asked
But
what he
inside a
remembered
small
most,
recording
Evan
room,
said,
Everything
waiting.
was silent.
Waiting for
Evan
what?
sat in
The
a
reporter
chair that was
asked
slightly
gently.
too big for
For
him.
permission.
His feet didn't touch the floor. Laura sat
America
beside
listens.
him, not as a detective.
The story didn't air yet,
Just
but people
someone he
inside the
trusted.
network were
The
shaken.
producer asked
This wasn't
softly,
conspiracy.
Evan,
This was
you can stop
documentation.
anytime, okay?
This was a
Evan
child.
nodded. I know. But inside,
Evan's
he
quiet
wasn't
power.
scared. He
Evan
was
didn't
remembering
cry on
something
camera,
older than
didn't
fear.
dramatize. He
Waiting.
just spoke,
Waiting for
slow,
permission.
clear,
And for the first
and
time
that
in
was
his
worse
life,
than anger.
no one was controlling when he spoke. The red light turns on. The camera light turned red. Recording. The interviewer asked the first question gently. Evan, what do you remember most about where you grew up? Evan thought carefully, not rushing, not hiding. The quiet, he said. The silence that was loud. He explained slowly, the hum of lights, the sound of his own breathing, the sound of someone writing notes outside the room. Silence was loud there, he said, because it meant someone was watching. The moment that changed the room. The interviewer asked, did anyone ever tell you who you were? Evan shook his head. They told me who not to be. No one moved. Even the camera operator blinked hard. Laura watches history happen. Laura stood behind the glass, hands folded tight. She knew this interview could change everything, or destroy everything, or both. The question no one wanted answered. The interviewer asked carefully, Evan, do you think there were other children? Evan didn't hesitate. Yes. He looked down at his hands, then whispered, I think some of them stopped talking forever. The broadcast gets scheduled. The network scheduled the story. Prime evening slot, national release. Laura felt something heavy settle in her chest. There was no going back now. The warning arrived. Laura received a message, unknown number, 3 words, stop protecting him. She deleted it, but not before screenshotting it. Evan learns what fear feels like. That night, Evan asked, will people be angry if I talk? Laura answered honestly, some might. Evan nodded. I think I'm tired of being safe. The broadcast airs. America watched. Not dramatic music, not flashy editing, just a child speaking quietly about a room, about waiting, about being good at not existing. The reaction. Hotlines lit up, emails flooded in, retired officials stopped answering phones, old departments refused comment. Someone recognized the pattern. A retired nurse called the network, crying, I thought I imagined it, she said. The investigation reopens. 3 agencies requested files, not publicly, quietly, the way old systems preferred. Evan hears his own voice. They played the broadcast back for him. He listened carefully. That sounds like someone who exists, he said. The past pushes back. Laura's case files were requested, not by her department, by a division she'd never heard of. Evan drew again. This time he drew something new. Not rooms, not numbers, a door, open. The question that breaks Laura. Evan asked, if I talk enough, do the other children get louder too? Laura turned away so he wouldn't see her cry. The story spreads. Online forums exploded. Historians started digging. Old property records resurfaced. Patterns formed. The truth gets dangerous. Laura realized something chilling.
The story wasn't exposing the system, it was waking it up. Evan feels something new, hope. It scared him more than silence ever did, because hope meant losing something later. The second warning. Another message came. Different number, same tone. He was not supposed to survive. Evan makes a choice. If they want me quiet, Evan told Laura, I think I should learn how to be louder.
The courtroom was silent. Not the forced silence Evan grew up in. A different silence. The kind where people listen. Evan sat beside Laura, older now, stronger, still quiet, but not erased. The judge asked gently, "Do you want your records sealed for privacy?" Evan thought carefully, then shook his head. No. Why? Evan looked around the room. Because now people were looking back at him. Because if I disappear again, someone else might have to stay quiet instead. The room broke, not with noise, with emotion. Years later, the houses were demolished, the files were declassified. Some children were found, some never were. Evan visited the empty land where the concrete room once stood. Grass had grown there. Wind moved softly across the ground. Laura stood beside him. "You're free now," she said. Evan looked at the sky. "I think I was always supposed to be." For the first time in his life, he spoke without waiting for permission. And somewhere, in places no one remembered, silence finally lost. Evan woke up in a room with windows for the first time in his life. He didn't understand what he was seeing at first. Light. Real light. It hurt his eyes. He raised his hands slowly, shielding his face, unsure if he was allowed to do that. No one shouted. No one hissed. No rule was broken. The ceiling was white. The walls were clean. The air smelled like soap and plastic instead of damp concrete. Evan whispered to himself, "So this is where people wake up." Learning to sit without permission. A nurse entered quietly. She smiled, but Evan flinched. He instinctively pulled his knees to his chest. The nurse noticed. She sat on the floor instead of the chair. "I won't stand over you," she said softly. That confused him. No one had ever changed their position for him before. She placed a cup of water beside the bed. "You can drink whenever you want." Evan stared at the cup. "Even if I'm not told?" "Yes." He waited. 30 seconds. A full minute. Then he touched the cup with one finger. Nothing happened. No punishment. No voice from the wall. He drank, and for the first time, Evan cried. Not loudly, silently, like he was afraid even crying might be against a rule he didn't remember anymore. The file with no beginning. Detective Laura Finch opened the case file, or what should have been a case file. There was nothing inside. No birth certificate, no hospital record, no adoption history, no missing persons report. The system didn't show Evan as missing. It showed him as never entered. Laura leaned back in her chair. In 20 years of work, she had never seen this. A child with no starting point. She muttered to herself, "You don't erase someone by accident." Evan's first question. That evening, Evan asked his first real question. He was sitting on the hospital bed, feet not touching the floor. "Why is everyone looking at me like a problem?" The social worker froze. She chose her words carefully. "They're trying to help you." Evan nodded slowly. "That's not how it feels." She asked gently, "What does it feel like?" Evan thought, then answered, "Like I broke something by being seen." The memory gap. A child therapist named Dr. Raymond tried something different. He didn't ask Evan to remember. He asked Evan what he didn't remember. "Is there a time before the room?" Evan shook his head. "Only rules." "Do you remember voices?" "Yes." "How many?" Evan paused.
Enough to know when one was missing. That answer made Dr. Raymond uncomfortable. Children weren't supposed to talk like that. The man without a face. On the third night, Evan screamed. Security rushed in. He was shaking, pointing at the corner of the room. "There was a man," he said. "What man?" He swallowed. "I don't know his face. I was never allowed to look up." "What did he do?" "He checked if I was still quiet." Ohio doesn't match. Detective Finch dug into property records. The house where Evan was found had no recent owner, but 38 years ago, it belonged to a shell company, a company that didn't exist anymore. But its name appeared once before in an old federal housing initiative, one that was never completed or officially canceled, just stopped being discussed. The other drawing. Evan drew again. This time, no one told him to. He drew multiple small rooms, all identical, each one with a child inside. None of them had faces. When asked how many rooms there were, Evan said, "I didn't count. Counting wasn't allowed." Learning his age. Doctors estimated Evan's age at around 9. When told, Evan looked confused. "That's too many," he said. "What's too many?" "Years." They asked why. "Because I only remember being small." The first outside step. They took Evan outside, just to the hospital courtyard. Grass, wind, birds. Evan stood completely still. Then he asked, "Where are the walls?" The nurse smiled. "There aren't any." Evan looked around, then whispered, "So what keeps people in?" No one answered. A system that didn't fail. The state got involved, quietly, too quickly. Men in suits, no badges, no names. They asked to see Evan. Laura blocked them. "Who are you?" One man replied, "People cleaning up an old mistake." Laura replied coldly, "Children aren't mistakes." The man didn't smile. Evan learns the word choice. They explained choice to Evan, that he could say no, that he could decide. He didn't believe them. "You're lying."